Legends and Superstitions of the County of Durham by William Brocky. The Pick-Tree Brag. The Pick-Tree Brag was a mischievous goblin, the existence of which was once firmly believed in by many of the inhabitants of the parish of Chester-le-Street. Sir Cuthbert Sharp, in his Bishopric Garland, gives a long account of this singular being, verbatim from the deposition of an old woman, of respectable appearance, of about 90 years of age, living near the spot, and who, he says, was universally referred to as knowing most about it. The worthy old dame said, "I never saw the brag very distinctly, but I frequently heard it. It sometimes appeared like a calf, with a white handkerchief around its neck, and a bushy tail. It came also like a galloway, but more often like a coach horse, and went trotting along the loanin afore folks, setting up a great nicker and a whinny every now and then, and it came frequently like a dick-ass, and it always stopped at the pond at the four loanin ends and nickered and whinnied. My brother once saw it like 4 men holding up a white sheet. I was then sure that some near relation was going to die, which was true. My husband once saw it in the image of a naked man without a head. I knew a man of the name of Berwick that was so frightened that he hanged himself for fear of it. Whenever the midwife was sent for, it always came with her in the shape of a galloway. It is now many years since the brag was last seen. The humble now brag. Old Mrs. Anne Avery, who died about 45 years since at the age of 75, used to tell Mr. William Hurrell, my informant, that when she lived at Hummel Now, near Sedgefield, a young married woman, she frequently, when sitting up waiting for her husband to come home, heard strange noises outside the house at midnight, as if all the horses and cattle about the place were broken loose, and running amuck at each other. The first time she heard this noise, she called upon the servant man and made him go out to see what the stir was all about, but the lad soon came in to say that there was nothing, either to hear or see. After a while, Mrs. A got quite accustomed to it, and expected to hear it every night when she had to sit up, but she never altogether got over her fears. Indeed, she said she was frightened most awful. It was sometimes as if the very doors and windows of the house were being driven in. Mrs. A believed in this strange story as firmly as she did in any incident of her life. No explanation of it, I need scarcely say, could she give. The brag, it may be worthwhile to add, is the Pan, Silenus, or Satyr, of our aboriginal British ancestors, in whose Celtic speech brag signifies a lie, a falsehood, an untruth, and broigach, a deceitful male. The appropriateness of the name, in the case of the goblin, being its ability to assume all sorts of shapes and disguises, so as to terrify and mock those who encountered it. The Hilton Lane Brag. In the palmy days of Keeldom, when the road leading from Sunderland to Hilton was commonly called the Keelman's Loanin, the men used on their customary walks at night up or down to be encountered by a supernatural being, which sometimes took the form of a dog, at other times that of a calf, at other times again that of a galloway, and occasionally that of a woman, and was wont to accompany them all the way from Lawson's Farm or Highford to a place called Glowerham, where they first came in sight of Sunderland. It there disappeared. Many of the old stagers whose memory went back as far as 60 or 70 years ago would affirm this to be a positive, undeniable truth. When a galloway, the brag, nickered, Mr. Hurrell tells me he knew an old man named Tommy Roundtree, who he said had heard it many a time. The Nicky-Nack Bridge Goblin. Many years ago, when there was no public house either in the village of Tudhoe or nearer that place than at Sunderland Bridge, a company of reapers had assembled at a farmer's house to enjoy a mell supper. A good supply of spirits and ale had been laid in, but either the party was larger than had been expected, or they drank more freely, for the supply was exhausted before the reapers were satisfied. So they agreed to contribute such a small sum, and send one of the company for more. The mission was entrusted to a poor fellow who was defective in intellect, and when he had been absent nearly 3 hours, the distance only being about 1.5 miles, several began to be impatient for his return. At length, one of them swore, with a deep oath, he would wrap a sheet around him, and would meet him in the Nicky-Nack field and frighten him. Accordingly, he procured a white sheet, drew it around him, and stalked out to meet the poor man. His companions waited long. Hour followed hour, and yet neither the reaper nor the messenger appeared. At last, when their patience was exhausted, and morning began to slowly break, the latter rushed in among them, pale and trembling. When they asked him if he had seen anything, he said, "Yes, I saw a white ghost which came and frightened me much, but I saw a black one behind it. So I cried, 'Black ghost, catch white ghost.' And the white one looked about, and perceiving the black one, screamed out amain, and tried to run away. But Blackie was too swift for him, and after much struggling, he flew away with Whitey altogether. When day dawned, and the peasants ventured forth to seek their companion, they discovered in the field of Nicky-Nack a few fragments of the sheet in which he had been wrapped. But he himself was neither then nor ever afterwards found."